A man was hiking in the Smoky Mountains when he stumbled across a seriously creepy discovery. Explorer and photographer Jordan Lyles surveys the creepy site, which is nestled deep within the woodland of the Smoky Mountains. Residents abandoned the town approximately 2 decades ago now, and its buildings have lain empty and forgotten ever since. And as Lyles peers through broken windows and collapsed walls, only the sound of nature breaks the eerie silence. Lyles shares his passion for the camera with his hero, legendary filmmaker and actor Sir Charlie Chaplin. And while Lyles is also a director, he's perhaps best known for his photography of abandoned places. But the cameraman has received considerable media attention for his documentation of one particular off-road and downright spooky exploration. And when it comes to abandoned locations in the US, there's a whole host out there waiting to be stumbled upon. After all, America's a large country steeped in history. As times change too, places evolve, or sometimes it seems they end up getting left behind altogether. But what would provoke individuals, neighborhoods, or even entire towns to just pick up sticks? Well, it seems that financial decline is one of the prominent causes of the phenomenon. Some locales that lie abandoned today may have had prosperous beginnings, but changes in fortune have left them in degradation. For example, features of places that had once brought in tourists or businesses, such as mills or mines, may have become obsolete, leaving the towns shadows of their former selves. Other sites may be abandoned for far more sinister reasons, however. Take, for instance, the infamous Lake Shawnee Amusement Park in West Virginia. In the 1920s, the owners chose to build this attraction on an ancient indigenous burial ground, which, as it turned out, was a very bad idea. 6 fairgoers reportedly died after the place opened. In fact, and it subsequently fell into disrepair. These days, the only visitors to Lake Shawnee's overgrown rides are those looking to get spooked out on one of the Halloween tours that are conducted there. Another particularly creepy abandoned location is the one in which photographer Jordan Lyles found himself in 2013. The spooky site in question lies in the region of Elkmont, Tennessee, which is hidden deep within the woodlands of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. The Memphis native is no stranger to the Smokies. He spent 26 years living in the area and still visits the park frequently in his downtime. And it was during one of his hiking expeditions that Lyles happened upon a forgotten treasure. Furthermore, Lyles explains on his website how he stumbled upon the mysterious place. About a mile up an unnamed gravel road inside the Great Smoky Mountains National Park is the back way into an abandoned neighborhood and hotel, some of which was originally constructed more than 100 years ago, he's written. But the ruins that Lyles discovered bear little resemblance to the area's glory days. The place isn't as easily accessible as it once was either, as the cameraman quickly found out on his visit. In fact, overgrown electrical equipment on the deserted path were the only indications to the curious explorer that the site exists at all. And yet he persevered nevertheless, all the while documenting his adventure on film. Lyles' 2013 footage begins with him walking along a deserted track. First, he approaches a dark shape among the trees, which appears as if the surrounding land has claimed it. A closer inspection of the form, however, reveals that it's the remains of a cabin. But any coziness that the structure may have once had has long since departed, and all that remains is an empty shell, one totally devoid of human life. Then, when Lyles gets even closer to the building, he sees shattered windows and pulled up porch floorboards. And as a consequence, the cameraman isn't sure if he wants to venture further. It's not fear of the supernatural that's keeping him from exploring inside, though. As creepy as the abandoned house may look, it's the very real concern that the house could give way and bury him in rotting wood. I don't really think I want to go in there, Lyles reveals in the video. It looks like the kitchen's on a slant, which means the property is not in very good condition. That said, he does manage to get a glimpse of the cabin's interior, which is complete with decaying shelves and toppled containers that litter the floor. And yet the front of the property is even more chilling, perhaps due to the screen door that hangs open invitingly. But the loose planks and fallen logs quell any air of welcome, suggesting that the place is in fact not safe to enter. Lyles glances through a broken window, and the room within is empty and bare. The derelict building's upper levels, meanwhile, are just as silent and deserted as the ground floor. Lyles' camera captures a lone mattress that's been abandoned in a bedroom, although a partly collapsed roof makes access to the area limited. Needless to say, the photographer isn't willing to risk his life by investigating any further. Next, Lyles' exploration takes him through the nearby trees and down a series of stone steps to another lonely abode. Peeking through a foreboding open wooden door and into the darkness behind it, the filmmaker spots some signs of human habitation. Whoever may have once lived here, though, now seems to be long gone. In particular, a washer and a dryer lie upturned and uncared for on the shattered floorboards, and persons unknown appear to have used the barrel that Lyles spots from the entrance as a makeshift table for now rusty paint cans. Who knows how long it's been since anyone's called this place home, or even stepped within its walls. But in order to explore this abandoned town's secrets further, Lyles has to retrace his steps back to the gravel path. There he finds another route, which is once again marked by a long-forgotten electrical equipment. And yet keen-eyed adventurers may have been able to spot another potential sign of life, a roof lurking among the distant trees. Meanwhile, litter scattered around the obscure path serves as a reminder of how still this particular place is. Whether the refuse has been blown in from elsewhere with the wind or thrown away by a former resident is unclear. But either way, Lyles continues on his mission, passing birthday decorations that have been left partially buried by fallen leaves. Up here on my left is another house, Lyles narrates as he continues along the path. This one does have steps. At the top of a short climb is the building to which Lyles is referring, which is missing some of its walls. Yet, while someone appears to have erected a transparent screen to replace the absent planks, that too is now torn and ragged. However, the upside to this makeshift screen is that Lyles can peer through it and get a glimpse inside the abandoned abode. A broken table is the only visible item that seems to be left from the home's occupied days. It also appears that someone has removed the window and propped it up against the wall, frame and all. In order to get a better look inside, then the photographer pushes past a tree that's obscuring a side window, and from his new vantage point he can see an interior living space, and beyond that a veranda, both of which are barren of furniture and fixtures. It looks as if everything in this house has been stripped back to the bare wood and loose planks. In fact, there aren't even any doors to be seen. Then back on the trail again, Lyles spots another 3 cabins in the distance, and it seems that at some point in the past vandals may have broken into the nearest of these houses. The lock is smashed after all, and the door sits wide open, revealing the building's interior and finally allowing Lyles to venture inside. In fact, the house is one of the few in this ghost town that looks as though it's been stable enough for someone to enter. And so, conscious of possible timber rattlesnakes, Lyles cautiously steps inside the vacant cabin's hall. This abode retains more evidence of its previous life than the others, it seems, including some blinds that still hang from the windows. What's more, the house's bathroom, which Lyles locates behind him and to the left, actually boasts a shower curtain, and the blue and white floral material looks in relatively good condition, compared to the rust-speckled shower that it covers at least. The door, on the other hand, has come off its hinges and is now propped up against a wall. And the adjacent toilet, equipped with a ratty blue seat cover, is in a similar state of disrepair. Considering that the building looks this creepy during the daytime, we daren't imagine how spooky it would be to wander through these derelict rooms at night. The house certainly wouldn't look out of place in a horror film, that's for sure. The cabin in the woods, anyone? Only birdsong and the hum of a nearby river breaks the stillness as Lyles scales a hill toward another house. Check that out, he says, pointing his camera in the direction of the closest property. The roof collapsed on this one, but it hasn't fallen down yet. However, it isn't just the top of the building that appears to be suffering from neglect. The floorboards of these houses did not do well over time, Lyles elaborates as he approaches the structure. We can peek through the window. It looks a little too dangerous to go in. Where there aren't gaping holes in the porch floor, you see, the wooden surface looks menacingly twisted and bent. Meanwhile, what was once presumably the house's main living space is now a crumbling mess of plaster that's tumbled from the walls. And huge patches of the ceiling have fallen away too, revealing bare rafters underneath. Perhaps the broken pipe on the floor holds a clue to what may have caused such destruction. You see, a number of men from Knoxville, Tennessee wanted to create their own private venue in a similar vein to the nearby members-only Appalachian Club, from which they'd been rejected. As a consequence, they turned the existing hotel into an exclusive social center, the Wonderland Club, which became a popular destination for affluent locals. However, the area lost money in 1925 when local logging projects receded, and so many of the buildings ultimately fell into disrepair. The Wonderland Club's story doesn't end there, though. With the creation of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in the 1920s, several residents of the area were evicted, and while some club members managed to retain property contracts in 1992, only 2 of these leases remained. The club officially closed its doors that same year, and the last of the agreements finally expired in 2001. And the hotel, the last of the buildings that Lyles explored, retained some historical significance, with authorities having claimed some of its more attractive features for preservation. It's a good thing, too, because on top of general neglect, a fire further damaged the Wonderland Resort in 1995. Nowadays then, the once thriving Wonderland Club and the cabins around it sit lonely and abandoned. But while the ghost town might appear wholly forgotten, the National Trust for Historic Preservation has actually recognized the entire Elkmont region on its list of endangered places. How much longer the area will survive, though, is uncertain. And fortunately, Lyles recorded his poignant footage before another disaster struck the location. A devastating fire in 2016, preventing the passage of time from completely consuming the deserted community.